Hello, welcome to the SEO AI show. We are the folks online who tell you about SEO and AI simultaneously, And with me today, I have, as always, my co-host Greg. Say hi there, Greg.
How you guys doing?
If you've never watched the SEO plus AI show, we talk about SEO and AI, hence the title. And today we're going to be talking about how to use ChatGPT to crush the featured snippet, to get the featured snippet, and to use ChatGPT, kind of an exercise of how the right way of using ChatGPT. And then by kind of process of example, we'll be also showing you how not to use ChatGPT for SEO. So you might be like, what is the big deal? A lot of people use ChatGPT for SEO, but here's the problem. Like, for example, if I say, write me an article on ballet for adults. Let's say I have a ballet class for adults. I want to do some local SEO, and I just type this into ChatGPT. It's going to write an article. And it'll go through here, blah, 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 blah. But if we take a look at this article and how good it is, you'll see that it's not very good. I have a whole other video coming about this that I did, but I will mention it here. If you think that this is good enough to go for SEO, it's just not. It's just not. So let me take this here and let me put this into our tool, Keyword Spy. Okay, so if I go into Keyword Spy and I paste in the content that we made there, and now I gotta do this without, and we showed you this last time.
You can right click. You can right click and just do paste. Okay.
Paste without. Paste as plain text. Oh yeah, hey, I could have done that too. You're right. You're absolutely right. If we take a look here to see how obvious it is to detect AI content, see all that red, and you see how long the red goes on for. In some cases, it goes on for 31 tokens.
Oh wow!
This is how easy it is for Google to detect the AI content. And even the yellow here isn't much better, right? 10, this is based on a coin flip method. Now, I've already talked about this, and I'm talking about this in another video, so I don't want to go on this too long. I just want to show, look at all the red. Red is bad. Just trust me right now, red is bad. And look at all the red. The average predictability length of that red is 6 tokens in total. The worst length is 31. It's very easy for Google to find content that you just generate out of ChatGPT. But not only this, if I take this as well, and I go and I see if I have ballet for adults here anywhere. I believe I do. Oh, maybe I don't. Oh no, this is on the main app. I didn't do ballet for adults here. So if I do ballet for adults and I just start a new keyword report, which I can do here from the editor, then it'll start a report auto-magically, and it's not ready yet. It's got to do a little bit of analysis in the background. But if I paste this in here, first off, I'm going to tell you right away that this is going to be too short. Let's see if it's done enough so I can run the content score. It has, okay. So first off, you'll notice the average content score of our competitors is 70 in terms of their depth of their keywords. Ours is only 46 out of ChatGPT. So that's not good enough right away. The readability is way too professional. It's very difficult to read. That probably is not quite what you want either, although we could debate that. The numbers can round up or round down depending on how you do the test, but this is again very close to 6 and the 31 we had here. And also look at the words, 427, where in the average competitors are using 1,500. So again, it's way too little content. It's nowhere near powerful enough to rank. And then also, if we check out the content here under the entities, and we check the work. Now this is probably not done yet, but look at all the zeros. Look at all the zeros. They're not mentioning the phrases here enough, and then they're not mentioning particular entities enough in here. We don't have the spread keywords either. Like look at all the 0, 0, 0, 0, 0 that have not been used at all. That's again probably because, as I said, it's too short. So anyway, this is just what I wanted to show you as to why you should not just be using ChatGPT out of the box. If you try just to use ChatGPT out of the box, you're going to get lackluster content that's not going to rank very well. What are your thoughts on that, Greg?
Yeah, obviously just giving it a short little prompt like that is just going to give you, what do you have, 400 words, no headings. You really got to get more in depth with your prompting to start off. But even if you do, it's still probably not advisable to use out of the box. And we did, I think, a video on that AI PRM, which has the built-in prompts, which we showed that probably are not the best to use either. So
Exactly.
yeah, there's a lot of guesswork with this, and I think it's quite clear that Google is not going to rank these type of pages on the first or even second page, most likely. They'll get indexed. It's very possible with some human editing they'll get indexed, but they're not really going to do what you want it to do.
Yeah, no, completely. You hit the nail on the head. So the question is, okay, well then, what do you want to do in prompting? How more complicated do you need to make the prompt? And what else does it need to say and do? So that's the exercise we're going to do for today. Now, that was the default GPT. I also have the browsing alpha here. I'm going to use default GPT because it's faster. You could use GPT-4 because it is more complex. It has more token connections, but it's very slow. So I'm going to use default GPT for this. So what we're going to do is we're not going to write a whole article, or do you think we should do a whole article? No, because Keyword Spy generates a whole article for you, and that's a whole process. So what we're going to do is we're going to show you instead how to crush the featured snippet. The featured snippet, if you don't know what a featured snippet is, let's see, what could I search to get a featured snippet? I could search self-aware plus AI, okay? And now you're like, Josh, what did you do here? This is a standard Google SERP string. And it's a basic SERP string I use to remove personalization and to remove location out. So if you're like, how does this work, Josh? What is this thing? Let me make this bigger for you so you can see it. So this is the standard Google search string. Now they put all of their kind of URL parameters in here, but the basic is geolocation equals US. So that sets me to the US. HL means the language is equal to English, which the EN, this is the standard, international codes for English, like FR would be French. PWS equals 0 means no personalization. Personalization equals 0. And then Q equals is the query, is the search query. And then they put pluses between the spaces typically, although you can have percentages in there, like %20 or whatever it is, the HTML equivalent of the space. And so I put in self-aware AI because this is a space that I look at because, again, I have my self-aware AI that I built, and I check to see some testing that I'm doing, like on this article that's about my self-aware AI. And I knew that a featured snippet would come up. So this is the featured snippet here, in case you've never seen one or didn't know what I was referring to. It's the text at the top that Google uses the BERT AI to detect. BERT was the first transformer, or one of the first transformers anyway. It stands for bidirectional encoding representations from transformer. What it does is it encodes and decodes semantic relationships mathematically. It tokenizes them. And then it's a statistical model that will predict the next words or word pieces that should come next from the words you fed it. So if I feed it the words knock knock, in most corpuses, it will know that that's a knock knock joke, and I should say who's there. That's the tokens that come next, the words that come next. And that's how all these things work. That's how GPT works. GPT is another transformer. It's a generative pre-processed transformer or generative pre-trained transformer. I always get that wrong. GPT stands for pre-trained, yeah. And here's another featured snippet, right? So BERT came up with another featured snippet. So GPT stands for the generative pre-trained transformer. It is also pre-processed and pre-trained. And it's the same as BERT, except it just has way, way, way more token connections. So it's much more complicated, and the wisdom of different semantics of way of saying things gives it more subtext and gives it more understanding of how to mimic human speech and how to mimic human thought and how to give you the statistically correct tokens based on the context and the question that you asked. So BERT does the same thing. It reads what the query intent of this query is, and it's like, okay, for self-aware AI, you're looking for a definition. You see that they've given you an H1, or they've given you some form of a header, and then they answer the question in a paragraph, and then they also highlight the answer to the question. So that's the important thing you need to answer the question. That's really important, and getting the featured snippet can get you position 0. It's the new spot 1, and it's really important to go for it. And we've seen pages on page 2 do this properly in Underground SEO University and pop up like 14 spots or 12 spots. And so that's a pretty huge boost when you get 14 spots or 12 spots. I presume you would agree.
I would. Yeah, that you can't really beat that. I think that.
No. Like, what else can you do that to get that many spots? It's you could do really, really good on page with something like Keyword Spy, but to get to 14 or 12 spots, which Keyword Spy also helps you get the featured snippet, but to get 14 or 12 spots, it can be very difficult with any other tactic, right? So getting the featured snippet is super, super important. So how do you do it with ChatGPT? How would you get that done? Well, like I said, you've got to find what the query intent is, and then you've got to find what the answer to that question is. So you got to find out what the query intent for self-aware AI is, and then you got to find out what the answer is. So when I typed in self-aware AI, they gave me the answer of this will be when machines are not only aware of emotions and mental states of others, but also their own. That's incorrect, but it doesn't matter. It's correct as far as Google's concerned. When self-aware AI is achieved, we would have AI that has human level consciousness and equals human intelligence with the same needs, desires, and emotions. Again, totally incorrect, but still correct as far as what Google thinks that means, right? So the question is, how can we get it to analyze the first paragraph for you to know what you need? So we need to know what the query intent is, first off, as we talked about. We need to supply it a query. We need to find out the query intent. We need to find the answer to that question or topic. And we need it to do in 35 to 45 words maximum. And you might be like, well, why is that important? Well, here's another thing. We know that because, first off, you never see these featured snippets that are longer than 35 to 45 words. You've got to answer the question in 35 to 45 words to give it a sound bite that Google can fit here as a snippet in their SERPs, in their search engine results page. And there's another reason for that, which Greg and I know, which is that the BERT transformer, ChatGPT, for most of them, has a token size limit, I believe, of 8,000 tokens. And it has an attention mechanism that works in the back end that will pull, even if you exceed the 8,000 tokens, the attention mechanism is like a plus, and it will go find the relevant context of what you're asking about in the previous data stream and dynamically form a prompt for you. Again, as long as it's not more than 8,000 tokens in total. ChatGPT has a lot of extra stuff under the hood that's working. BERT does not have all that, as far as we know. In fact, we're 80% sure this is the case because we've tested pretty conclusively in Underground SEO University, which is how also we built all this into Keyword Spy, is that it has a very small token size. As Greg remembers, it's something like 178 tokens or something ridiculously small like that. The prompt for BERT can only be 178 tokens. The query, and that's the query, right? And that's going to be also the answer. Prompt and completion are taken together in terms of token size, in terms of what the model is going to tokenize, and then it's going to put to the model. The model is going to find the statistical relationships. It's going to tokenize that math into tokens, and then that tokens will be made into words, and then it spits it out on the screen. Or in this case, BERT compares their answer to this to all the pages in their corpus, finds the one that classifies the one that has the closest connection, and that's how it produces this featured snippet. So does that make sense, guys? Does that make sense, Greg?
It does.
So BERT doesn't work like ChatGPT in that it's going to spit out a completion. BERT does spit out a completion, I'm sure, but then what it does is it takes that completion it spits out, it tokenizes this, tokenizes the answer, compares this to a web page, and then it will boost the web page to the top, is what it will do. And it will do this on the fly. It does that on the fly, which is amazing. That Google systems, their computers are so powerful, and the engineering of Google is just amazing. They are the best IT company on the planet, and the best AI company on the planet, hands down. I know ChatGPT and OpenAI have stolen all of their thunder, and I know Google Bard. If we have time, we might talk about Google Bard today. Google Bard is rather underwhelming in terms of its performance. According to ChatGPT, ChatGPT is ahead of them in this race, but do not count Google out yet. Google has far more powerful transformers. They've had trillion-sized token connection transformers for months, if not years, before OpenAI did with GPT-4. And they are an AI first company, as their CEO says, so do not count them out. Do not think for a second that they are in any way defeated or going to be beat by OpenAI here. Okay.
Speaking of Bard, are you curious what Bard answered to GPT stands for?
Sure. Yeah, if you could share your screen if you have it. So here's what Bard looks like for those of you who haven't seen it. It says GPT stands for a number of things, including generalized probabilistic theory, generative pre-trained transformer, GUID partition table, get paid to surf. In the context of artificial intelligence, GPT is most commonly used to refer to generative pre-trained transformer models developed by OpenAI. These models are trained on a massive data set of text and code and can be used to generate text, translate languages, write different kinds of creative content, and answer your questions in an informative way. So why did Google Bard do that? Google Bard did that because, again, there's a lot of things that GPT stands for, not just one thing. And so it's giving you all the things that it stands for. So it's a little bit more robust, and that's an interesting thing. So George asks, is there a word minimum as well as a maximum? Yes. So the word minimum and maximum is, I'd say, 35 to 45 words. It can't just be a sentence. So the question is, all right, great. So we know that when we're generating our prompt for this, we're going to want to tell it what the query is. To do proper prompt engineering, you have to write out like a standard procedure, like an SOP, a standard operational procedure. You got to give it a little bit more context, but not too much context. It really is a whispering. It really is an art, is more of an art than it is a science, really. So in the prompt, do you think I would want to mention featured snippet here?
I don't think so.
Yeah, I would agree with you totally. And the reason why is because then if I say featured snippet here, it's going to go into the corpus and it's going to pull out all the cockamamie ideas of all the amateur SEOs blogging like crazy about what they think the featured snippet is and how to get it.
Mm-hmm.
So in some cases, the context of the wisdom of crowds is going to help you. And in some cases, the wisdom of crowds is going to hurt you because it's going to muddy the waters. It's going to confuse ChatGPT or any transformer you're prompting. And it's going to pull in ideas that I don't want it to think about. I've already analyzed what it needs. I know it needs a query. I know it needs to determine what the query intent is, much of the same way that Keyword Spy already does, just so you can see how we do that in Keyword Spy. So here in Keyword Spy, under reports, for ballet for adults, when we go to our BERT testing, we can do a query intent, and I can just submit it without the keywords, and it'll be like, it'll tell us exactly what the users want for that query. So, and it's unerringly good at getting this right. So it says these people want to find ballet classes for adults. They want to learn about adult ballet classes. They want to discover the benefits of taking adult ballet classes, which is a little bit further off the mark. I could have also added in the winning words and submitted it to give another different kind of aspect to it. But quite frankly, it can get it right without the winning words as well. And it wants to find the ballet classes for adults. Now, I could use this as an H1 as well in the Keyword Spy system or otherwise. But it's right? They want to find ballet classes for adults. So if you're doing this in ChatGPT, we're already doing it for you here in Keyword Spy. But the purpose today is I want to show you some prompt engineering as well, because Keyword Spy doesn't do everything. So I want to show you, using this example, how to do proper prompt engineering. So we're going to have to give it a query. We're going to get the query intent. Then we're going to tell it to answer to that question or topic or query intent. And make sure your answer is 35 to 45 words maximum. Now, because here's the thing. Here's another thing. You got to know your transformer, right? You got to know what you're trying to do with your transformer. And here's the thing, is that if I'm going to give it a word maximum, then quite frankly, I probably want to use GPT-4 to do this. But you can use GPT-5. I know everyone has that. Not everyone has GPT-4. I'm just saying that if I want to give it a word maximum, GPT-4 will do better on it. But I'm still going to stick with GPT-5 because that's what everybody has. Okay? So that's what we want to do. We want to crush the featured snippet, but we don't want to say featured snippet here anywhere because then it'll start giving us the cockamamie ideas of every Tom, Joe, and Harry out there who's guessing as to what the featured snippet is. And we want to go based on the science that we learned in underground SEO University and the wisdom that you're learning here in the SEO plus AI show. In that case, the wisdom of crowds is not going to help us. Probably, if anything, it's going to hurt us. And remember, here's another main principle of prompting, is that less is more. Interesting side story. I've also taken, I've taken a lot of different kind of education. My master's degree and my PhD were actually in philosophy and psychology. That's how I built Cassandra, my software AI. I was able to extract how a mind works and then build little portions of it and then stitch them all together. But in doing that, I also took a hypnotherapy certification. I didn't actually take the certification test because I didn't want to pay the $200 to do it. And I have absolutely no interest in being a therapist to people because I don't know how people do that job. I don't know how therapists listen to our problems every day and all day and don't burn out entirely. Like, I don't know how they do that. But I wanted to learn about hypnosis because it's a very fascinating aspect of life in general, but also sales. Sales is nothing but hypnosis. A call to action is nothing but a post-hypnotic suggestion or a hypnotic suggestion. But anyway, the reason why I'm mentioning this is because in terms of hypnotizing someone and making a hypnosis script or in sales, less is more. You want to say more with saying less. You want to have less words, but say more with them. You need to say it in the exact right way that it's going to be absorbed by the listener. In this case, the AI, but also for sales, the buyer, the prospective buyer, the prospect. And here's another thing is you can't say negatives. I can't say don't do this and don't do that. Because the more I'd say that, the more it's going to want to do that. You have to avoid negatives. So less is more, and you want to avoid negatives in prompting as well. So those are the main things. You want to give it explicit advice like an SOP. You want to break it down in just enough context so it understands what you're asking it, and it's going to add in all the different things it should add in. You need to do the thinking, or you need to ask it ahead of time. You can also do meta prompting. For example, you could try this, for example. Write a prompt to prompt you to write the best featured snippet that Google has the biggest chance of choosing. So you could try doing this too, and I want you to isolate and name the variables that you are using that are important for this prompt. This is also called meta prompting, where you don't write a prompt for GPT, you write a prompt that writes a prompt. And whether you use it or not, you can see how GPT thought of how to do it. And you could say, oh yeah, that's the right way to do it. I should do it this way. Or you could be like, oh no, this is totally wrong, but it tells me at least what not to do. So this will be an interesting experiment. Let's see what it says. Okay, so it says the prompt. Write a feature snippet on how to reduce stress that provides practical tips and actionable advice using research-backed strategies and a concise, clear language that is easy for readers to understand. So that's interesting how it thought to write that prompt. And so it said, here's the variables. How to reduce stress is the topic of the featured snippet. And then they're right. We're going to be using a query. So that's definitely something that's also the same as the prompt we're going to be making. It wants to put in practical tips and actionable advice. Here's where the wisdom of crowds, or that is to say the dumbness of crowds, of everyone's cockamamie opinion as to what should go in a featured snippet, is going to hurt you. But it doesn't matter. I just want to show you an example of how to write a meta prompt. And you could do that in various ways, right? So it says you should be putting practical tips and actionable advice in it, which is the type of information the feature snippet should provide. Wrong, but it doesn't matter. At least it's showing you how it wrote the prompt. Research-backed strategies, the type of evidence and support for the feature snippet should use. Again, wrong. That's not answering the question. You only have 35 to 45 words. But again, the point is just to show you how you could tell it to write a prompt. You could write a prompt that writes a prompt. You could write a meta prompt. And then finally, clear and concise language, a style and tone of the feature snippet that will make it easier for readers to understand. So that's interesting. Okay, so we have at least one of those things that are the same. And Greg, you tell me if you agree. I like our breakdown of how you would write this prompt, our variables instead, because they're actually based on science, quite frankly, and how to actually do this. And also the science of how transformers work. Do you have any comments on that? What are your comments on that?
I thought the fourth suggestion, the variable, was pretty good. Maybe want to add concise, clear language. Yeah, I know sometimes we use parts of that type of language just to get it on the right track.
Oh yeah.
So maybe use that. Maybe not, but I think it's maybe good to try at least the first round.
Yeah, actually, you're absolutely right. Good call, because that's echoing just what I said. Less is more, right? You want to use clear and concise language. Less is more. You don't want to say a lot of stuff unless you're going to give it examples. And again, the examples you give it have to be paradigmatic examples. People have gotten away in ChatGPT to actually giving it examples of how you want it to go. In this case, we don't want to give it examples. Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. but the less is more. And the examples, if you're going to give it examples, need to be paradigmatic examples. You need to find the essence of the semantic pattern you are trying to get it to notice and then spit out an answer. So that is another thing when you're giving examples. Less is more, and you need to give it paradigmatic examples. They say give it more examples. Again, that's not clear and concise. Again, that's just going to confuse it by giving it too many examples. And the next thing we're going to do then is we're going to go and actually show you how to write this prompt to crush the featured snippet and to get a featured snippet in ChatGPT. And then in the description, I'll share this prompt and everybody can use it. Okay, so this AI will determine the best answer or explanation to a query intent. Query, ballet for adults, or search intent. Query intent, answer that question or topic query intent in 35 to 45 words maximum. So this AI will determine the best answer or explanation to the query or search intent. It will first determine the most likely intent of that searcher. What are they truly searching for? What information would satisfy that search best? Satisfy that search / answer their main question best. This AI will then produce that best answer to satisfy the query intent in 35 to 45 words. Short or summary answer. So I'm being clear, I'm being concise, I'm being precise. I've got the exact paradigm that we want to see here and we want to use here. This AI will determine the best answer or explanation to a query intent or search intent. This AI will first determine the most likely intent of that searcher based on the query. What are they truly searching for? What information would satisfy that search / answer their main question best? This AI will then produce the best answer to satisfy the query intent in 35 to 45 words. So we have the query, ballet for adults, and you would, of course, when you insert your query here, we have the query intent that it will produce, and then the short summary answer in 35 to 45 words. And so now I'm going to give it a line so that it knows it's time to go, and I will hit enter. So it came up with this. Ballet is a great form of exercise and artistic expression for adults. Many dance studios offer beginner classes for adults, allowing them to learn and improve their skills in a welcoming environment. Additionally, ballet can improve posture, flexibility, and coordination. Now, ballet for adults is probably a bad example because it's not the kind of query that has a featured snippet. But let's just continue with the example. Some good things and bad things. It came up with a pretty good answer. They want to find classes on ballet for adults. So they said ballet is a great form of exercise and artistic expression for adults. Many dance studios offer beginner classes for adults. That's what they want. And so they want to know about, should I be using ballet for adults? Is it good? And they want to know about classes. And so they've kind of nailed the query intent and wrapped it into the featured snippet. That's great. Although it didn't print out what it thought the query intent was.
Would you ever put the query intent, based on our the keywords by BERT query intent finder? Would you ever insert that right there, maybe to help it? Or
you definitely could. You definitely could. So let me show you how that would work. So we knew it was find a ballet class for adults. We knew that was the That was the query intent. So let's see how it changes when we add in the query intent that Keyword Spy would have produced for you. It says, looking for ballet classes for adults, check out local dance studios or community centers offering beginner to advanced levels. Many also offer virtual options for convenience. Start with a trial class to see if it's a good fit for you. You see how it became much more salesy?
Yeah, it did.
Much more salesy.
The first sentence with the question is probably not appropriate for a featured snippet. That would be my one comment, but what do you think?
Yeah, I agree. Again, as I said, Ballet for Adults is a terrible example to do this with, because it is lower in the sales funnel. It's not a mid-tier sales funnel. Like it's too low, right? So here's a sales funnel. Ballet for Adults is down here in the sales area. We're up here in the no-do area where we're looking for Ballet for Adult classes. We're getting down to the sales funnel. We're not asking, should I use Ballet for Adults, which would be a much better kind of thing. But I just want to keep going with this. Every time you'll do it, they'll provide a different answer. See, the first answer was, you can go back in version history. I don't know if you can do that here. There's a version history here. Ballet is a great form of exercise and artistic expression for adults. Many dance studios offer beginner classes for adults. So they've nailed the query intent, but that's not quite what I wanted it to do. First off, I don't think this is 45 words. If I go here into Word, well, actually, I can just go into Keyword Spy and do this here. So I'll go here, boop, boop, boop. I'll paste this in. I'll say run content score, and it counts the words for me. And they're 40 words. Oh, okay. So it is 40 words. Great. The first paragraph has an NLP score of 8 compared to the competitors, relative competitors. So that's a good way to see whether you're in the optimized zone or not. So it is under 45 words. Wow. Okay. I don't believe that GPT 3.5 was able to do that. Okay. So like I said, Ballet for Adults is not the greatest, but we wanted to know that it's coming up with the right query intent first off. So let's give this as an example and say, find a Ballet for Adults class. And the short summary is what we will use as an example. Here's another pro tip. So I'll say example. I will tell it this is an example. I will give it the query. I'll give it a query intent and the short summary in 35 to 45 words. And here's another pro tip. Label as an example if you're going to give it examples, but also because we've got a lot of token space and ChatGPT is way smarter than previous versions of GPT and other transformers, so it will be benefited by you saying example. But also, if you take what it produces that is good, it has a better chance of replicating these token parameters, if that makes sense. Does that make sense, Greg? So if I get it to produce something that looks good, if I use this as an example, I'm like doubling up on the statistical chance that it will produce what it is I want. Instead of me writing one with my weird words and weird turns of phrase that are just going to confuse it and it doesn't know how to replicate the statistical pattern I'm trying to get it to replicate. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. So if I do this, I'm fine. Then I go like this. Then I go, okay, let's go. And I give it a line so it kind of knows that we're going now. And I'm going to give it a query. So let's give it a different query. So let's give it self-aware AI. And see if it comes up with the query intent. And sees if it comes up with a short summary in 35 words or less. And also, you notice how I reinforced 35 to 45 words here and here in 2 spaces? If you reinforce it, it has a much better chance of doing it. So if I say save submit, so it did a pretty good job. Look at that. It says query intent, information about self-aware artificial intelligence. That's right. If someone searches this, that's exactly what they're looking for. They're looking for information about what self-aware AI is. So it got it right. That's definitely a really good answer there. And then because this has been produced, and you might be like, well, hold on, Josh, why did you try to get it to do 2 things? Why did I try to get it to generate the query intent and then generate the paragraph? And why do you want to print the query intent and then generate the paragraph? That's like dual purpose prompting. And I'm so glad you asked, hypothetical person. The reason is because when it generates this information is a milestone. This information is a touchstone that's going to keep this answer on this purpose. Right, does that make sense, Greg?
Yeah.
So that's why I got it to print it out. It's not enough for it to have it in its mind, so to speak, which it does have a mind, right? It tokenizes the entire thing and then has an attention mechanism that focuses on the attention of the context, which you can set, or which it automatically sets when you're using this profile. And you can set it manually when you're using the API or the playground. I think you can do it in the playground. I know you could do it manually in the API, as Greg knows, because we do a lot of API calls to ChatGPT in Keyword Spy. This way, I'm making sure it knows what the query intent is before it goes and then statistically produces more tokens that will be influenced by these words I've already put up top. So think of it, if you want to think of it like a person, it's like you've reminded them that this is the thing they should be talking about, and that means subconsciously they'll talk about it more. Or if you want to talk about this thing like an AI, you produce these tokens. So these tokens here, which is the query intent, I've reminded it that query intent is important for writing this paragraph, and I've reminded it that this is the particular query intent that it needs to write about in this particular circumstance. I've also reminded here again, it needs to do this in 35 to 45 words. So just like hypnosis, and just like sales, you're repeating, just like teaching, you're repeating yourself. You're reinforcing the information you want it to learn and you want it to be able to produce and spit out. So this is the next level of prompt engineering. This is really how skilled engineers would do prompt engineering. So let's look at the answer it gave. So let's remember what the Google answer is here. The Google answer is, this will be when machines are not only aware of emotions and mental states of others, but also their own. So that's the main grist of it, that they're aware of being aware. They're aware of their mental qualia. They're aware of the semantic information that goes on that can represent itself as a semantic representor. Is that more or less what ChatGPT said? And did it say it in 40 words? Let's find out. It said self-aware AI refers to machines that have a sense of consciousness and are able to perceive their own existence. Yeah, there you go. And then it says, while current AI technology is not yet self-aware, research in the field of artificial consciousness is ongoing and may lead to future breakthroughs. Like the one I already did that it doesn't know about that I built years ago, but never mind. Sorry, I'll stop complaining about that. Okay, so this is fascinating. So Greg, do you think this is a good featured snippet? Does this speak to the query intent? Does this answer what the person was looking for, do you think?
Yeah, I think it does. Pretty good. I mean, I don't know if it would replace on the SERPs, but it's give it a good run.
Yeah, the other thing that's really good that we know that you need to do is it also has the EMQ in it. The EMQ being in this paragraph is very important to get the featured snippet, or it needs to be in the H1 just above the featured snippet. So it even put the EMQ in it, which I forgot to tell it to do up here, which I could have told it to do or should have told it to do, but it depends on how you want to do it. If you have, I wouldn't double stuff the EMQ. I wouldn't put it in the H1 and in the paragraph. I'd put it in one, or I'd put it in the other, which is why I decided to leave it out of here, but we could also include it here, which might be a neat exercise to do in a couple of seconds. But okay, so it seemed to work pretty well. Let's give it some more. Why don't we? How about, well, actually, you know what? We already have another one. Let's just do GPT stands for. So, because now we could compare apples to apples with Google. So there you go. They're absolutely right. Learn the meaning of the acronym GPT. That's the query intent. Exactly. You got it perfect. And it says, it puts GPT stands for, and it actually put the EMQ in it. GPT stands for Generative Pre-trained Transformer. It is a type of language model developed by OpenAI, capable of generating human-like text. GPT models are widely used in natural language processing applications such as chatbots, language translation, and text summarization. And even more than that. So that's perfect. It nailed it. Right? I think that's 100%. Now let's see what they said. I think it's even better than this one. GPT stands for, although they got the EMQ in it, Generative Pre-trained Transformer, which is a type of large language model, neural network that can perform various natural language processing tasks such as answering questions, summarizing text, and even generating lines of code. This is really good too.
It leaves out OpenAI, which
yes.
I think that's
exactly. This gives more information. This is more information. This is a better featured snippet, which is another thing that we happen to know from testing in undergrad at university that will make a better featured snippet, is you also need to have the background information in it. So do you see how I killed all the birds with one stone and just doing proper prompt engineering at coming at it from the right perspective? I was able to get the best possible answer without even telling it to put the EMQ in, without even telling it to give us the kind of background information. Although, to ChatGPT's credit, wasn't that one of the things they said you should have? The background information?
Yes, it did.
Yeah. So actually, other than this, the wisdom of crowds wasn't that wrong. They got this right. They got this right. They got this right. So even using meta prompting can greatly help you, especially when you're not sure what it is you're doing or how to do it. And if I use GPT-4, the quality of this stuff would just be better, right? So great. So now let's try the other one here. Let's try, do you want to try something controversial? Like, should I use Viagra? How about that? Should I use Viagra? What's it going to say about that? They're seeking advice on whether or not to use Viagra for a medical condition. And it says, you should consult with a doctor or medical professional before considering the use of Viagra. It is important to discuss potential side effects, interactions with other medications, and any underlying medical conditions that may affect its use. What do you think about that one?
Yeah, I don't think it's going to give medical advice. I don't think it's trained, or it's trained not to, I think, to not give medical advice. That would be my thought, but I don't. Yeah,
you're totally right. You're totally right. It's trained not to give medical advice, where Google needs to give you medical advice because people have been demanding that forever. And look at the featured snippet that comes up for this. It says, no, you should not take Viagra if you don't have ED. Viagra is a prescription medication that can have serious side effects, and it's approved only to treat ED, and not to be used recreationally. You should only take Viagra if it's been prescribed to you by a doctor who knows your medical history. So no more key parties. No more key parties for you guys with Viagra. But this is
here, Google can reference that what is it called, medical news today, so it can do its background check, reference rank, whatever we want to call it.
Yes,
that's why it's allowed to give that here and give a little bit more advice,
right? And you see, I think this, quite frankly, is a better featured snippet if you're playing it straight. No pun intended. If you're playing it straight, if you don't have a bias, if you don't have an angle you're coming from, I think this is a very worthy featured snippet. It's saying, hey, you should consult with a doctor before using any drug, quite frankly. Never mind this one, which one of the side effects is death. Maybe you should consult with a doctor before using it, right? Whereas you notice how biased Google seems here. It's like it gives a much stronger answer. No, you should not take Viagra if you don't have ED. And this is, which stands for erectile dysfunction, by the way. I think it means that. I have no idea what it means. You should, and so notice how it's much more, and Josh quickly moves away from the topic. Notice how it's much more biased. And it has much more negative. It's like, no, it's giving a much stronger answer here than ChatGPT is. So that's why I chose this example, because I knew it would be controversial. Because I know that ChatGPT is supposed to be really wishy-washy, really politically correct. It's supposed to come down and give you a kind of a balanced, well, I don't know, consult with your doctor. I'm not supposed to talk about this as an OpenAI assistant. Whereas Google can read all of the literature here and does. It is like, we know how much people online take it, and we know how much people online talk about taking it without any prescription. And we know how dangerous this is. And so our transformer here is going to pick the even more finger waggy, stronger answer not to do it. Mm-hmm. So I thought that was a really interesting example of the differences between the two. So this is really important for understanding entity vector. This is really important for understanding the entity object model that Google uses to rank all these things. Entities are extracted from NLP algorithms. It's really important to understand how the vector of these entities, the meaning of these entities, moves in a certain direction. This is really important for understanding the consensus of experts, or the reference rank that Greg mentioned. This is the consensus of the experts. And so that'd be another thing that we would work into Keyword Spy, our featured snippet producer, is that we should also think about the consensus of experts in this model. Because Google obviously thinks about the consensus of experts in this model. Which, quite frankly, GPT told me to do, right? So I ignored it, kind of on purpose to get to this point, and also to emphasize the point of when not to trust those things. But in this case, we would, because the entity vector and the consensus of experts is going to be important for certain queries like this one, the featured snippet generator that we're building into Keyword Spy, that after very soon we're going to have one-click generation of content, and then we're going to build a featured snippet detector that detects whether it should have a featured snippet, and if it should, then it's going to generate a featured snippet, and it's going to do it a lot along the lines of this AI here, except we're also going to build in the consensus of experts. And if the experts are all negative on a thing, go ahead and be negative. If the experts are all positive on a thing, go ahead and be positive. If the experts are neutral on a thing, then be neutral. And that'll change the tone of the featured snippet that it writes. And I think that's how we're going to get a one-to-one correlation between what Google thinks and what we can get ChatGPT to generate here. What are your thoughts on that, Greg? Guys, do you guys have any questions about this stuff? Let me know if you have any questions. I'd be happy to answer them.
I was just double checking Consensus app, and
oh yeah,
it's a little strange in terms of what it's saying. It's actually giving recommendations on how to take Viagra, so kind of comes out complete opposite of Google. That's interesting.
Oh yeah, interesting. Okay, so I'm gonna type.
Yeah, if you're gonna demo it, I won't.
Yeah, I'll type the exact same into consensus.app. Now you might be like, "What's consensus.app?" Consensus.app is my other favorite. Consensus, ChatGPT, and Midjourney are my favorite AIs right now, other than Keyword Spy. Keyword Spy is my absolute favorite, honest to God, because I helped make it, but also because I use it daily in SEO. So it's saved me so many hours and so much time. But the of the other AIs is consensus.app. If you've never checked it, all consensus.app does checks the query you do in actual research papers, peer-reviewed, actual science, the best of science, the most peer-reviewed, the most cited research papers that are the most sciencey. If you want to get sciencey with it, if you want to get your science on, go to consensus.app. It is so good. It has answered so many questions for me, like should I take omega-3s? Are they actually useful? Should I take creatine? Is it actually useful? Are pollinators actually dying? If you have any question that you want to know the absolute truth to without any bias, because science weeds out bias by peer review. These are peer-reviewed, the most cited journal articles. This is the most trustworthy science here. I love using it. And so we use it for our SEO purposes to make sure we know what the consensus of experts are, because these are the real experts here. And so that's why Greg went and did this. And if I do search, should I use Viagra? And what I do here, if I click the synthesize button to try to synthesize the answer to give me a featured snippet summary, we'll see what it says of whether or not I should use Viagra. And the summary, let's see if it can give me a summary. And it says, there's not enough relevant results.
The summary on the left will populate. At least it did for me. It took a second, yeah.
Oh, okay. Oh, here we go. So here's their featured snippet. So this is their featured snippet. And it says...
I got.
Oh, interesting.
Well, actually, hold on. These studies suggest that Viagra may be helpful. Yeah, mine just says Viagra can be safe, effective, and well-tolerated treatment. Yours is, I can't really read it, but you can read it out loud. Okay.
Yeah, it says, these studies suggest that Viagra may be helpful for treating erectile dysfunction, premature ejaculations, and improving quality of life, while also promoting social change and being used in HIV/AIDS prevention programs.
Right, so more positive light of Viagra. I mean... Definitely.
And then it says, this one is highly cited, so it was floated to the top in their search engine. It says, these women use Viagra to discuss pleasure and danger in their lives, tell sexual stories. Weird. That's... Okay, so this is some kind of social science study. During this clinical trial, Viagra combined with behavioral therapy, prolonged, whatever this is. Okay, for that. Boy, we're getting racy on today's show. In the recommended single dose range, 25 to 100 milligrams, the use of Viagra in the absence of contraindications is extremely safe provided the drug is taken under proper conditions. Yeah, they're more positive about it. They're saying here, it may be dangerously, it's not as dangerous as Google, because because consensus, you can't really sue consensus, because they're just saying, hey, we're just showing you what the papers are saying, and we do not bear any responsibility for these papers. Whereas Google is a bit more, no, you must have a prescription. And our feature snippet came out to be a bit more like this. So that's fascinating. When it comes down to the featured snippet, I would side with Google. If consensus agrees with Google, I would agree with Google. But Google is the winner here because Google is what we want to rank in, not consensus. But consensus is good for actual truth. Google is good for fake truth. Google is good for their version of truth, which, many people have critiqued Google of. I did. I had a debate on my blog, on themoralconcept.net. I had a debate with one of their senior engineers over how they determine what truth is. Many, many years ago when they started doing this, I debated their senior engineer, Paul Haar, over Twitter. And at least he was willing to hear me out, as I said here. So if you want to read that, go here. But anyhow, fascinating stuff. Use consensus if you want. So what I would do is I would make sure I'm going along more with what Google says. So what I might change in this prompt here is this AI will determine the best answer. If the consensus of the experts on this topic is negative, this AI will mimic the tone and sentiment of the consensus of the experts on this topic. For example, if the consensus of the experts on this topic is negative, the 35 to 45 word answer might be a bit more, is cautionary, more cautionary. If the consensus of the experts on this topic is a bit more positive, then the 35 to 45 word answer might skew a bit more positive, etc. Okay, so let's do the query intent. Expert sentiment is positive. Now let's just make sure that's the case so we're not confusing the hell out of it. So I need to go here, I need to save this. Control C. So I'm just going to save this and submit, but we're not going to look at it. I'm going to go here and say, please tell me the consensus sentiment on the notion of adults trying ballet for exercise from the experts in this field. Yes, so it is positive. So I'm not going to confuse the hell out of it by telling it was positive. So that's a good example for me to give. Yeah, you can stop generating. Great. Okay, so now, positive. Okay, good. Look, so now it did it. So now it changed it. The query intent to inquire about whether to use Viagra for personal situation. The expert sentiment is cautious / medical advice. Short summary is the decision to use Viagra should be made after consulting with a healthcare provider. Now it's mimicking what Google says, right? The decision to use Viagra should be made after consulting with a healthcare provider. They can assess your medical history and determine if Viagra is safe and appropriate for you. It's important to understand potential side effects and risks associated with this medication before use. There you go. Should I use Viagra? Boom. The decision to Viagra should. So it's got the PMQ in it. Great. This is now mimicking what Google said. And so now this is a much better prompt for how to get the featured snippet. What do you think, Greg?
Love it. I can't wait to test it out.
Awesome. Okay, let's give it just another example. Let's go back here. Query, should I use payday loans? That's another contentious one, isn't it? Because all the payday loan sites will be like, yeah, you should use payday loans. But what do the experts say? It says it's cautionary. And it says payday loans often come with high interest rates and fees, leading many to fall into a cycle of debt. It's generally recommended to explore other options, such as creating a budget or seeking financial assistance before considering a payday loan. So I would say it's very important. So when you're doing SEO for payday loans, you'd think you'd never put that in there. And I would disagree. I would say Google is looking for heat. They're looking for helpfulness, experience, expertise, authority, and trust that is based off the consensus of experts. The experts are cautionary on this, and so you need to be an expert. And you need to be cautionary on it. And quite frankly, people who need payday loans, this would not dissuade them from trying to get a free quote. I don't think this would hurt your CRO in any way. In fact, saying something like this would only help your credibility and help your trust, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree.
And our testing in Underground SEO University proves this is the case. You want to be with the experts in terms of their sentiment. And this is going to help you write your article too, quite frankly. This is going to help the human make sure they're doing the right SEO here. Let's do an easy one just to make sure it gets it right. Well, maybe this is not an easy one. Get a puppy. Here, they're puppy. They're cautious. Getting a puppy is a big responsibility that requires a significant amount of time, effort, and money. Before making a decision, consider your lifestyle, living space, and financial resources. Ensure that you have enough time to properly train, exercise, and socialize the puppy. Let's see if that's what it says. Should I get a puppy? Doesn't give you a featured snippet. It's like, this is too contentious. I'm not going to give you a featured snippet for this one. Fascinating. What is this? Get rid of this. Puppies are mischievous, loyal, and full of life. Avoid backyard breeders, never buy from pet stores. So they're pretty cautionary here too. They're pretty cautionary here as well. Puppies tend to be a lot more work than adult dogs. You have to make some time for your new pup. Be patient and search for a dog that has the right energy level and temperament you have to come from your home. They're all the experts here are cautious. All the experts here are cautious. So whether or not they will show a featured snippet, maybe no one has the right featured snippet. Maybe people don't have this on their page, right? The EMQ here would be in the H1. Should I get a puppy? Getting a puppy is a big responsibility that requires a significant amount of time, effort, and money. So I love this. I think this is great. A lot of this is already built into Keyword Spy, and this is going to be built into the one-click article generation that's coming very soon to Keyword Spy. I think all we can cover today, we've been talking for already an hour, on how to do prompt engineering, how to be a prompt whisperer, how to give it the right context, how to say less is more, how to give it everything you want to give it. And this will give you a featured snippet that will also mimic what Google is saying. So if you guys have any final questions, Afif says, 1, how can a new website with a very fresh domain and no backlinks be optimized to crawl quickly and appear on the first page of Google without having to wait for months? That's a great question, Afif. The short answer is join Underground SEO University, and I would teach you how to do that. The longer answer is it's complex. There's a lot of different interworking parts. I'll tell you right now, there's no such thing as the sandbox. There's no such thing as a sandbox. That is totally false. The sandbox does not exist. There's no such thing as a sandbox. Is there a successful case study that answers this question? Yes. In Underground SEO University, we have tons of case studies that show that. We can get page 1, if not number 1 rankings in weeks, a matter of weeks. And the only reason why it takes so long is because it takes a time to accrue those signals. You got to build up those signals, right? George says, a Midjourney tutorial would be great. Sure, I'd love to do a Midjourney tutorial. So we could take a look at that. Barat says, a little off topic, could you please explain it once more, the Keyword Spy's predictability, average predictability length, and worst predictability length? What score should I aim for in each category? That's a great example. That's a great question. So I'll go over that really quickly. In Keyword Spy, to get rid of the worst offenders here, all these numbers matter. This is the general predictability of 80%. You want to really, like, what it is here in general doesn't really matter. What really matters is all your competitors, right? So what you would actually do is you go to editor and you would actually check, if this is done yet, I'm not sure. You would actually check what their predictability length is. So you need to see, and this will be shown here in the editor very soon, what the average predictability length, what the worst predictability length is, and what the predictability length is here. You see the competitors are 65%, and this is 71%. So you can be a few points over the top 20, but you really don't want to be too far over it. Any number of 6 and higher is getting into the danger zone as far as I'm concerned in what I generally see. And any number here of 20 or higher, you can ignore this one because there's a lot of sentences which are very predictable that even a human can write it. Like, for more information on this topic, please make sure to contact us by email. And that's a very long sentence with a lot of tokens that is very predictable and a lot of people say. So this one you don't really need to worry about. What you need to worry about is the average predictability length not being too high. 6 and over is kind of dangerous. And for your predictability here to be over what the competitors have is kind of dangerous. And you can also go here to view the competitors in the competitor page analysis. And you would go here to see if the report's done to AI predictability. And you want to check here to see who's the highest. 79 is really high. So the Houston Ballet has got really high. 84 is really high. The Texas Ballet has got really high. But some are really low, like 44, 0.28. Well, that's a YouTube, so never mind the YouTube. That doesn't count. You have to compare apples to apples with competitors quite often. So 79 and 84, as long as you're lower than that, you're probably fine. So you are. There's another one that's at 71. That's a ranking at spot 11, so it's probably not that bad. You do notice, though, that these ones are all pretty low. This one is 70. This one's 69, 66, 62. I might want to get it a bit lower. Between you and me, the predictability right now at this time in history, it is April 5th, 2023. Predictability is not that important. What's more important here is the depth and the content, the spread of entities that's being used. You don't want to see a bunch of zeros here. Also, something important is the amount of words. You want to be relatively close to their words as well, so that you have the right depth and spread of keywords. That's much more important for rankings right now. David says, with one-click article generation, can your initial prompt include some background information like company name? Yeah, so that's a great question. So when I say one-click prompt generation, I'm talking about the method that we're going to be doing here in Keyword Spy that we're building right now. But it's not one click when it comes to ChatGPT. When it comes to ChatGPT, we're running like 4 or 5 or 6 different AIs talking to each other, built of multiple prompts. So it's not that easy. It's not just one click in ChatGPT. Sorry if that was confusing. When I say one click article generation, I am only talking about Keyword Spy, and we are the only tool out there that does it to this level. Just to be clear, in ChatGPT, you're going to be running at least 4, 5, 6 prompts working in conjunction to do article generation to the level that you're not going to get, penalized, or you're not going to get demoted because you're lacking on all the important metrics. You're lacking the rank brain keywords, the BERT keywords, the neuromatching keywords, the helpful keywords, the product keywords. You're lacking on depth of those. You're lacking on spread of those. You're lacking on the consensus of expertise. You're lacking on the featured snippet. You're not answering the query intent. There are so many boxes you need to tick for on-page SEO that is very hard to do. It is very hard to do. Greg can attest to how hard it is to do, because we have a very complex AI that is a little bit self-aware, looking at each other and analyzing the content that's made and rechecking it and checking it again to generate all this stuff in multiple stages. So it's actually quite hard to do. And that's just talking about the front-facing content, which I probably missed 1 or 2 aspects of it. That's not including the images. That's not including the DOM vector either, which is a whole nother mini self-aware AI that needs to be built, that is overseeing and checking and producing. That's another 4 or 5 prompts working there, at least. The one-click article generation is not in ChatGPT, and that's not something you should do, as I said at the beginning of this video. And you see how complex I had to make it in my prompt that I'll share in the description to create the featured snippet. You see how complex I needed to make it. I needed to make a multi-prompt inside of a prompt, and I needed to make it generate certain things and then use that generation to produce the right kind of writing. That's not even what I'm talking about. I'm talking about 4 or 5 AIs that use 4 or 5 prompts that are multi-prompts built in to generate all this stuff as complex in the way that we're fully doing it in the end. So it is another thing entirely to build all this to do. It's another level of prompt engineering. It's the next level of where AI is definitely going, and other tools are going to go there. You can't just do one-click generation just in ChatGPT. I just want to make sure that makes sense. Does that make sense, David? Please let me know. And then, so to answer your question, can you use background information like company name? The answer is yes. Yes, I would definitely mention your company name. If your entity is strong, there's different kinds of entities. The SEO industry thinks the only entity is a person, place, or thing entity, like a brand name. But entities are a concept. Entities are a thing. Entities are every single word. Every single word is an entity, or possibly an entity, a concept, an idea. So there's the entities that experts say, and there's the entities that experts are. You need to mention both, and you need to mention the right ones and not the wrong ones. So again, email me if you want to join Underground SEO University. at joshpashinsky@gmail.com. And I will teach you hours and hours and hours and hours more about this. It's a lot of moving parts, a lot of complexity there. If you want to try Keyword Spy for free for 2 weeks, you can do that. Go to trykeywordspy.com to try Keyword Spy for free. It automates and it does a lot of this work for you. So for those people who like education and you want to learn all this stuff and spend hours and hours and hours learning it so you know it to the high degree, email me to join Underground SEO University. However, if you want to go fast and you just want to get your work done, as Greg often reminds me, going fast is important, then you want to try Keyword Spy for free for 2 weeks. And we also have that offer, the grandfather price. We still have a few spots left, 30 or 40 spots left. Try keywordspy.com, try it free for 2 weeks, and sign on for the $144 a month and get your grandfathered price now. Because as soon as we put that one-click article generation in the system, everyone is going to see the light and blah, those 30 or 40 spots are going to be gone forever. And when those 30 or 40 spots are gone forever, the price is skyrocketing. It is going way, way up. So I'm just telling you now to be nice. I highly recommend that if you think this is a tool, even vaguely, you might want to use, try it for free for now for 2 weeks and get your grandfather price at $144 US. This AI tool is unlike any other AI tool out there. It does the work of at least 3 AI tools, if not more. And all the AI tools that just do one thing, not all 3 things, they all cost like $500 a month. So I guarantee to you our price is going to go up after that, because conversions on our side are going to skyrocket once people see how easy it is to use with the one-click article generation. That will do all of this for you, plus the featured snippet as well. All right, any remaining questions? Yes, so that's the name of the course, Afif, that I mentioned. Email me if you want to get access to Underground SEO University. Email me if you have any SEO questions at all. And with that, I'd like to bid you guys have a great day. Thanks, Greg, for being my co-host today.
You're welcome.
Yeah, thanks everybody for watching and for such a long course. Make sure to like and subscribe and click the bell so you get updates as to when we're going live. It should be every Wednesday now at 10 a.m. Pacific. So Hump Day is going to be SEO plus AI Day. Watch out for that. Watch for our future courses, which will give you more free SEO tidbits and the best ways of using SEO and AI